My apartment in Brooklyn was quiet. That was the first thing people noticed when they visited, which wasn't often. It was a curated silence. Minimalist furniture, gray tones, a view of the skyline that cost me a fortune in rent, and absolutely zero drama. I had engineered my life to be the exact opposite of the house I grew up in. I was sitting at my kitchen island, coding. The rhythmic clack of the mechanical keyboard was the only sound I needed. I was 32, a lead software architect for a fintech startup, and for the first time in my life, I felt stable. Safe. Then my phone buzzed. It wasn't a call. Just a text. But the name on the screen made my stomach tighten into a familiar, painful knot. Mom, come home for the barbecue tomorrow. Noon. Don't be late. Big news. I stared at the screen. Big news in my family never meant anything good. Usually, it meant my sister, Margot, was in trouble again, and I was being summoned to fix it. Or pay for it. Or, at the very least, stand there and be the punching bag while my parents explained why Margot's latest failure was actually a misunderstood genius move. I typed back, I have a deadline. Can't make it. The reply came 3 seconds later. Mom, it's about Grandpa Silas's estate. Be there, Sloan. Grandpa Silas. My fingers hovered over the glass. Grandpa had died 6 years ago. The wound was still fresh for me, even if the rest of the family seemed to have moved on the moment the funeral service ended. He was the only one who saw me. The only one who didn't treat me like an accessory to Margot's shining existence. If they were talking about his estate, I had to go. But I wasn't going in blind. I opened a folder on my phone labeled receipts. It was a habit I'd picked up in therapy. Document everything. Because in my family, history was constantly being rewritten to favor the golden child. I checked my voice recorder app, making sure it was updated and ready to record in the background with a single tap. Okay, Mom, I whispered to the empty room. I'll be there. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept dreaming of the cabin. Grandpa Silas's place in the Catskills. It wasn't a mansion, just a sturdy, beautiful log home built in the 70s, sitting on 10 acres of apple orchards and dense woods. It smelled like cedar and old paper. It was the only place on earth I'd ever felt like I could breathe. The next morning, I dressed like I was going to a deposition, not a barbecue. Dark jeans, a crisp linen shirt, sunglasses that covered half my face. Armor. The drive from Brooklyn to New Jersey took an hour, but it felt like traveling back in time to a version of myself I hated. The scapegoat. The ATM. The shadow. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, I saw it immediately. A brand new, pearl-white Range Rover parked smack in the middle, taking up 2 spots. It still had the rental agency barcode sticker on the side window, though someone had tried to peel it off. Margot was here. I parked my modest sedan on the street, wouldn't want to block the view of the royalty, and walked up the path. I could hear them in the backyard. Laughter. The sizzle of meat. The clinking of glasses. It sounded like a happy family. It sounded like a lie. I tapped the widget on my phone screen. Recording started. I took a deep breath, put on my best neutral expression, and walked through the gate. There she is. The stranger returns. My father, Gerald, was manning the grill. He was wearing an apron that said King of the Coals, a gift Margot had given him 5 years ago, bought with money she'd borrowed from me. He waved a pair of tongs, his face flushed with heat and gin. Hi, Dad, I said, stepping onto the patio. You're late, my mother, Sylvia, said. She didn't look up from the potato salad she was stirring. Margot has been here since 10. I work, Mom. Saturdays are my catch-up days. Always working, Margot's voice drifted from the lounge chair. You need to learn to manifest abundance, Sloan. Then you wouldn't have to grind so hard. There she was. Margot. 36 years old and still playing the role of the misunderstood heiress. She was wearing a flowing sundress that probably cost $500, oversized sunglasses, and holding a glass of rose like she was posing for a magazine cover. "Good to see you too, Margot," I said, taking a seat on the far edge of the patio, as far away from her perfume as possible. "Nice car out front. Business is good?" Margot lowered her sunglasses, flashing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Business is booming. I'm actually pivoting. Tech is out, real assets are in. I've been reading a lot about generational wealth." I almost laughed. Margot's last pivot was a crypto scam that lost our cousin $3,000. Before that, it was a dropshipping business selling yoga mats that smelled like gasoline. "That's great," I said dryly. "So, what's the big news?" "Patience, Sloane," Dad said, dropping a burger onto a plate and handing it to Margot first, naturally. "Let your sister eat. She's had a stressful week managing her portfolio." I accepted my burger in silence. I watched them. It was fascinating, in a morbid way. Margot was the sun, and my parents were the planets orbiting her, desperate for her warmth, blind to the fact that she was burning them alive. They knew she had debt. I knew they had refinanced their own house twice to bail her out of situations. But they clung to the fantasy that Margot was just one big break away from saving them all. I was the steady paycheck. The emergency fund. The boring one. "So," Mom said, wiping her hands on a napkin and looking at Margot with adoring eyes. "Tell her, honey." Margot sat up straighter. She took a dramatic sip of wine and set the glass down. "Well," she began, her voice dropping an octave to sound serious. "You know how I've always said we're sitting on a gold mine?" I took a bite of my burger. "I thought the gold mine was the essential oils business." Margot ignored me. "I'm talking about Grandpa Silas's estate. The cabin." I stopped chewing. I carefully placed my burger back on the plate. "What about it?" "It's been sitting there rotting for 6 years, Margot said, waving a hand dismissively. "Just gathering dust and property taxes. It's a liability. But I have vision." I realized that with the market in the Hudson Valley exploding right now, that place is a lottery ticket. "We're so proud of her," Mom chimed in, reaching out to squeeze Margot's hand. "She's taken so much initiative." "Initiative to do what?" I asked. My voice was calm, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. "To flip it, obviously," Margot said, as if talking to a slow child. "I'm developing it. I'm going to turn that dusty old shack into a modern, luxury retreat. Floor-to-ceiling glass, polished concrete, maybe an infinity pool overlooking the ridge. I've already got buyers lined up. Pre-sale interest is through the roof." "Wait," I said. "You're developing it?" "I'm already doing it," Margot beamed. She reached for her iPad on the table. I didn't want to say anything until I had progress to show. "I wanted to surprise you guys." She unlocked the screen and swiped to a photo gallery. She turned the iPad toward me. "Look at this. This was taken yesterday." I looked. And the world tilted on its axis. The photo on the screen was high resolution. It showed the living room of Grandpa Silas's cabin. Or rather, what used to be the living room. The beautiful, hand-hewn stone fireplace, where Grandpa used to roast chestnuts, was smashed. A pile of rubble lay on the floor. The built-in oak bookshelves, filled with his history books and field guides, were gone, ripped out, leaving jagged scars on the plaster. Margot swiped. The kitchen. The vintage cast-iron stove was missing. The cabinets were torn off the walls. Margot swiped again. The porch. The wide, wrapping porch where I had learned to whittle wood, where I had spent hours watching the rain, half of the railing was gone. A chainsaw lay on the floorboards. "It looks a bit messy now," Margot said, misinterpreting my silence. "But you have to break a few eggs, right? That old wood was hideous. We're going for a Scandinavian minimalist vibe. Open concept. We're knocking down the wall between the kitchen and the den tomorrow. I stared at the image of the destruction. My sanctuary. My memories. Being torn apart by my sister's vanity. You hired a contractor? I asked. My voice sounded distant, like I was underwater. Of course. A guy named Otis. He's a bit rough around the edges, but he does what he's told. I've got him working double shifts to get it market ready by next month. And the money? I looked at Dad. Who is paying for this? Dad puffed out his chest. We helped Margot with the initial liquidity. An investment. We're partners on this. Liquidity, I repeated. You gave her money to demolish the house. To improve it. Mom snapped. Why do you always have to be so negative, Sloan? Your sister is finally doing something with that old place. You never lifted a finger to help clean it out. That wasn't true. I had cleaned it out. I had spent weekends there quietly fixing the roof, oiling the wood, keeping the pipes from freezing. But I never told them. Because if I told them, they would have found a way to take it. And you think you can just sell it? I asked Margot. Just like that? Margot laughed. A tinkling, condescending sound. Sloan, honey, I'm the executor of the vision. Mom and Dad signed power of attorney over to me for the estate dealings last month. It's all legal. I'm handling everything so they don't have to stress. Power of attorney. They thought the house was still in probate. They thought it was still the estate of Silas Vance. They thought that because Grandpa died without an updated will in their possession, it naturally fell to his only son, my father. They were wrong. 6 years ago, on his deathbed, Grandpa Silas had called his lawyer. He knew Dad was weak. He knew Mom was an enabler. And he knew Margot was a shark. He had sold the house to me for $1, 3 days before he died. The deed was in my name. The taxes were paid by me, from a P.O. box in the city, so the mail never came to the house. I had let them believe it was sitting in legal limbo because it kept them away. I figured as long as they thought it was a hassle, they'd ignore it. I was wrong. I looked at the iPad again. The destruction was real. The damage was done. If I screamed now, if I told them I owned it, the construction would stop. But then what? Margot would play the victim. Dad would say it was a misunderstanding. They would guilt me into paying for the repairs myself because family helps family. Margot would walk away without a scratch, probably stealing the copper pipes on her way out. No. I looked at Margot's smug face. She wasn't just destroying a house, she was trying to erase Grandpa. She was trying to cash out his legacy to fund her fake lifestyle. I needed her to commit. I needed her to be so deep in this lie that she couldn't climb out. I took a sip of my iced tea. The ice cubes clinked against the glass. The cold condensation dripped onto my hand. Well, I said, forcing a small smile. It sounds like a massive project, Margot. It is, she preened. But I'm built for this. Are you sure you want to knock down that wall? I asked, pointing to the screen. That's a load-bearing wall, isn't it? Please, she rolled her eyes. I know what I'm doing. It's coming down tomorrow. Open concept is the only way to get the $1 million listing price. $1 million, I mused. That's a lot of money. It's life-changing money, she whispered greedily. I looked her dead in the eyes. I channeled every ounce of cold, corporate detachment I had learned in the boardroom. Okay then, I said softly. Go ahead. Make it worth it. Finally. Dad cheered, raising his beer. Sloan is on board. A toast to the family business. They clinked glasses. I raised mine but didn't drink. I wasn't toasting to their success. I was toasting to their funeral. I stayed at the barbecue for exactly 45 more minutes. I listened to Margot brag about the imported Italian tiles she had ordered, which I knew were probably vinyl knockoffs. I listened to Mom plan the vacation she was going to take with her share of the profits. I felt like a spy in enemy territory. Every word they said was being recorded on my phone. Every admission of their plan to gut the place was evidence. I have a migraine, I lied around 2 in the afternoon. I need to go lay down. I'm heading back to the city. Suit yourself, Margot said, not even looking up from her phone. She was probably texting her buyers. Don't work too hard, Sloane. You'll get wrinkles. I walked to my car, got in, and drove down the street. I waited until I turned the corner, out of sight of the house, before I pulled over. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from a rage so hot and pure it felt like lava in my veins. I didn't go back to Brooklyn. I merged onto the highway and pointed my car north. Toward the Hudson Valley. Toward the Catskills. The drive usually calmed me. The transition from the gray concrete of the city to the lush greens of the mountains was my therapy. But today, the scenery was a blur. I replayed the timeline in my head. Grandpa Silas had been a carpenter. He built that cabin with his own hands in 1974. Every beam, every joint, every nail had his sweat on it. When I was 10, Margot had locked me in the basement because I wouldn't let her cut my doll's hair. Grandpa was the one who found me. He didn't yell at Margot, he knew she thrived on attention. He just took me out to the porch, handed me a piece of cedar and a knife, and said, "Create something, Sloane. Destruction is easy. Creation is hard. Be one of the builders." That porch was now half gone. I arrived at the turnoff for the estate just as the sun was setting. The gravel road wound up the hill, flanked by maples and oaks. My heart was in my throat. I crested the hill and saw it. In the photos, it was bad. In person, it was a massacre. A large yellow dumpster sat in the front yard, right on top of Mom's old hydrangea bushes. It was filled with debris, wood, plaster, glass. I parked my car and stepped out. The silence of the mountain was broken by the flapping of a blue plastic tarp that had been stapled over a hole in the roof. I walked up the steps. My boots crunched on broken glass. The front door was unlocked. Margot hadn't even bothered to secure the site. I walked inside. The smell hit me first. Dust. Exposed insulation. And something else, stale cigarette smoke. Grandpa never allowed smoking in the house. I stood in the center of the living room. The fireplace. God, the fireplace. The beautiful river stones were scattered across the floor like bones. I walked to the kitchen. Stripped bare. The copper piping was exposed where the sink used to be. I walked to the back bedroom, my old room. It was filled with boxes of new materials. Cheap laminate flooring. Boxes of recessed lighting fixtures. I touched the wall where Grandpa used to mark my height with a pencil. It was gone. Painted over with a slapdash coat of agreeable gray. I sank to the floor, leaning against the cold, gray wall. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos. Every angle. Every damaged inch. I took videos, narrating the date and time. August 14, 7:30 p.m. Entryway destroyed. Original hardwood flooring removed without authorization. Structural beams exposed. I was building my case. I slept in my car that night. I couldn't bear to sleep in the house, it felt like sleeping inside a corpse. At 6:30 in the morning, I was awakened by the rumble of a heavy truck. I sat up, blinking against the morning sun. A battered white pickup truck was pulling up the driveway. A man hopped out. He looked to be in his 50s, wearing worn Carhartt overalls and holding a thermos. He looked like a man who worked for a living. This must be Otis. I stepped out of my sedan. I was still wearing my clothes from yesterday, wrinkled and stiff. Otis saw me and stopped. He squinted. "Hey. Can I help you?" He didn't sound friendly. He sounded like a guy guarding a job site. I walked toward him. Are you Otis? Who's asking? He set his thermos on the hood of his truck. This is private property, miss. You can't park here. I know it's private property, I said, stopping 10 feet from him. I'm Sloan Vance. His face changed. Recognition? No, confusion. Vance? You related to Margot? I'm her sister. Ah, Otis relaxed a fraction. She didn't say you were coming up. She usually texts me 50 times before I even have my coffee. He chuckled, but it was a tired sound. She sent you to check on the progress? Tell her I can't knock that wall down today. I need to shore up the ceiling joists first or the roof comes down. At least he wasn't incompetent. She didn't send me, I said. Otis, I need to ask you a question. And I need you to be honest with me. Otis crossed his arms. Okay. Did Margot show you the deed to this house? Otis frowned. The deed? No. She showed me the power of attorney papers. Signed by her parents, Gerald and Sylvia Vance. Said the old man passed and left it to them, and she's handling the flip. And you signed a contract with her? Yeah. Standard remodel contract. He looked at me suspiciously. Look, lady, is there a problem with the money? Because she's already late on the second draw. I fronted the lumber for the deck myself, and I'm not doing another lick of work until I see that transfer. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila envelope I always kept with me. Inside was a certified copy of the deed. Otis, I said, my voice steady. My parents don't own this house. Margot doesn't own this house. I handed him the document. I do. Otis took the paper. He pulled a pair of reading glasses from his pocket and peered at it. He read the header. Deed of transfer. Grantor, Silas Vance. Grantee, Sloan Vance. Date, October 12, 2019. He read it again. He looked at the official county seal. Son of AB********H, Otis whispered. He looked up at me, his face draining of color. She said it was probate. She had papers. They looked real. They were real power of attorney papers, I explained. But they were for my parents' assets. Or maybe they forged them for the estate. Either way, they have no authority over this property. This house has been mine for 6 years. Otis took off his hat and ran a hand through his thinning hair. Miss Vance, I've gutted this place. I've torn out the kitchen. I've destroyed the fireplace. I know, I said. I could go to jail, he said, panic rising in his voice. Destruction of property. Trespassing. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. I believe you, Otis, I said. And I did. He looked like an honest man who got steamrolled by the Margot bulldozer. And right now, you are the only person who can help me fix this. Fix it? How? I can't put the stone back together. Not the house, I said. Not yet. I need you to help me fix my sister. Part 6, the revelation. We sat on the tailgate of his truck. I shared his coffee. So, let me get this straight, Otis said, staring at the ruin of the house. You don't want me to kick her off the site? Not yet, I said. If I stop her now, she just walks away. She claims she was helping. She claims it was a mistake. She leaves me with a broken house and no money to fix it. And she never learns. So what's the plan? She owes you money? I asked. $15,000 for materials and labor so far. She paid the deposit in cash, 10 grand, but she's ghosting me on the second installment. She's broke, Otis, I told him. She doesn't have the money. She's trying to sell the house before she finishes fixing it to pay you. Otis cursed. I knew it. She talks too fast. People who talk that fast are always running from something. I need you to keep working, I said. Otis looked at me like I was crazy. Keep destroying your house? No. Stop the destruction. Tell her you hit a snag. Tell her you need to do structural reinforcement before you can do the pretty stuff. Buy time. But act like you're still on her team. Send her invoices. Send her emails confirming her orders. You want a paper trail, Otis realized. I want a paper highway, I corrected. I need proof that she is directing this work. I need proof she is claiming ownership. I need her to dig the hole so deep she can't see daylight. Otis looked at the deed in his hand, then at the house, then at me. She called me a grimy little man yesterday when I asked for my check, Otis muttered. She called me a shadow, I said. Otis held out his hand. I'm in. What do I do first? Text her, I said. Tell her the wall comes down on Saturday. Tell her it's going to be a big dramatic reveal. Tell her to bring the buyers. Buyers? Otis asked. She has buyers? She says she does. Yeah, Otis nodded grimly. I've seen a young couple poking around. Nice kids. Driving a Subaru. She brings them here on Sundays when I'm not working. I thought they were just friends. My blood ran cold. She wasn't just flipping it. She was selling it. She was taking money from strangers for a house she didn't own. Okay, I said, standing up. Saturday. We end this on Saturday. I looked back at the house. It looked wounded, jagged, and exposed. Hang on, Grandpa, I thought. Just a few more days. Wow, Margot has really crossed the line this time. Before we see how Sloane springs her trap, if you are enjoying this story of revenge, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, drop a comment below with the name of the city or state you are listening from. I'd love to know where our community is growing. Every comment helps the video reach more people. Thank you so much. I drove back to the city with a singular purpose. The sadness was gone, replaced by the cold, analytical focus I used when debugging complex code. Margot was a virus in our family system. I needed to isolate her, analyze her payload, and then purge her. Back in my apartment, I set up my command center. 3 monitors. Coffee. And access to public records. I wasn't a hacker, but I knew how to find information. Margot lived her life online, which made her vulnerable. First, I checked the county clerk's website again. No permits filed for the address. Margot was doing unpermitted work. That was strike one. A big one. The fines alone would bankrupt her. Next, I looked up Margot Vance LLC. It didn't exist. She was doing business as herself, or maybe under the table. Then, I went deeper. Margot had mentioned liquidity issues. I knew she had burned through the money Mom and Dad gave her. But where did it go? I remembered something Margot had bragged about last Thanksgiving. I'm into yield farming now. High risk, insane rewards. I started searching her handle. She used the same username, Queen Margot V, for everything from Instagram to her old Poshmark account. I plugged it into a few crypto-focused forums and public ledger scanners. Bingo. I found a wallet address linked to a Twitter account she used for crypto giveaways. I ran the address through a blockchain explorer. The transaction history was a sea of red. June 4th, $12,000 sent to LuckyBit Casino. June 15th, $8,500 sent to LuckyBit Casino. July 2nd, $25,000 sent to LuckyBit Casino. The investments weren't real estate. They weren't even crypto trading. They were online gambling. I scrolled down. The wallet balance was currently 0.04 ETH. About $70. But then, I saw the deposits. August 1st, plus $50,000. Source, unknown. $50,000. That was the exact amount a buyer would put down as a deposit on a house priced around 500 grand in a quick cash deal. She had taken a deposit. She had spent it all in 2 weeks. My sister wasn't just a flipper. She was a desperate addict digging a hole so deep she was about to hit magma. I needed to find the source of that 50,000. Otis had mentioned a young couple driving a Subaru. Nice kids. I went to Instagram. I searched the location tag for our town in the Catskills. I scrolled through photos posted in the last month. Sunset over the ridge. So excited for our new chapter. Hashtag homeowners, hashtag Catskills life. The photo showed a young woman holding a key that looked suspiciously like the spare key mom kept under the mat, standing in front of my cabin. Her name was Kira. Her profile was public. I clicked on her stories. Can't wait to move in next month. The seller is so sweet, she's even renovating the kitchen for us. There was a photo of Margot and Kira clinking champagne glasses on the porch. The caption read, "Thanks at Queen Margot V for making our dreams come true." I felt sick. These weren't faceless investors. Kira looked like a teacher. Her husband, Finn, had photos of himself in hiking gear. They were normal people looking for a home. And Margot was robbing them blind. I found a photo of them tagged at a coffee shop in Beacon, a town near the cabin. The caption said, "Meeting the seller to finalize the contract." The timestamp was from this morning. They were still in the area. I grabbed my keys. I had to go back up. I found them at a small bakery in town. Otis had tipped me off that they liked the sourdough there. They were sitting at a window table, looking over a stack of papers. They looked happy. Hopeful. I walked in. I ordered a black coffee to steady my nerves. Then I walked over to their table. "Kira? Finn?" They looked up. Kira smiled, assuming I was a local being friendly. "Yes? Hi. My name is Sloane Vance." Kira's smile faltered slightly. "Vance? Are you related to Margot?" "I'm her sister." "Oh. Nice to meet you." Finn stood up to shake my hand. "Margot is great. She's been so helpful with the whole process." "Can I sit down?" I asked. "I have something important to tell you." They exchanged a glance, but Finn pulled out a chair. "Is everything okay?" Kira asked, noticing my serious expression. "Is the renovation delayed?" "There is no renovation," I said flatly. "And there is no sale." Kira laughed nervously. "What do you mean?" "We signed the intent to purchase. We gave her a deposit." "Did you give it to a title company?" I asked. "Or did you give it to her directly?" "Well, directly," Finn said, defensive now. "It was a cash deal for a discount. She said it would speed up the closing." $50,000? I guessed. Finn's eyes widened. "How did you know?" "Because she lost it all on online gambling last week," I said. Silence. The air in the bakery seemed to vanish. That's a lie," Kira whispered. "Margot is a professional. She showed us the deed." "Did she show you a deed with her name on it?" I asked. "Or did she show you a power of attorney document?" Kira looked at Finn. "It was the power of attorney. From her parents." I reached into my bag and pulled out my deed. I laid it on the table between their coffee cups. "This is the real deed," I said. "I bought the house 6 years ago. My parents don't own it. Margot doesn't own it. And she has absolutely no legal right to sell it to you." Kira picked up the paper. Her hands were trembling. She read it. She looked at the date. She looked at my ID, which I placed next to it. "Oh my God," she choked out. "Our savings. That was our down payment savings. We cashed out our 401ks. Finn looked like he was going to be sick. But she's renovating it. We saw the work. She's destroying it, I corrected. To make you think she's adding value. She's using a contractor she hasn't paid, on a house she doesn't own, with money she stole from you. Kira put her head in her hands and started to sob. It was a quiet, heartbroken sound that tore at me. I am so sorry, I said gently. I didn't know until yesterday. If I had known, I would have stopped it sooner. Finn looked up, his face red with anger. We're calling the police. Right now. No, I said. Not yet. Why not? Finn demanded. She stole 50 grand from us. If you call the police now, she gets arrested, sure, I explained. But the money is gone. I saw her accounts. It's zero. You'll be just another creditor in a long line of people she owes. You might get pennies on the dollar in 10 years. So what do we do? Kira asked, wiping her eyes. We get her, I said. We catch her in the act of trying to take the rest of your money. We make it grand larceny. We make the charges so sticky she can't wiggle out. And we use the leverage to seize whatever assets she has left, her car, her jewelry, anything, to pay you back. I looked at them both. Are you willing to play along for 2 more days? Finn looked at Kira. She nodded, a hard look entering her eyes. What do we have to do? Finn asked. I was driving back to the city when my phone rang. It was Mom. I stared at the screen. I knew what this was. Margot was running out of liquidity again. She needed to pay Otis or risk the work stopping before Saturday. I answered on speaker. Hi, Mom. Sloane, honey. How are you? Her voice was sickly sweet. The voice she used when she wanted something. I'm fine, Mom. What's up? Well, I was just talking to your father, and we were thinking, you know how you have that savings account? The one you use for, whatever it is you do. My retirement fund? I asked dryly. Right, that. Well, Margot is in a bit of a pinch. Just a tiny cash flow issue with the estate project. The contractors are demanding advance payment, so unprofessional, and she's waiting for a transfer to clear from her other investments. Investments at Lucky Bit Casino? I wanted to say. But I held my tongue. How much does she need? I asked instead. Just 10,000, Mom said quickly. A loan. Strictly a loan. She'll pay you back with interest when the house sells next month. She promised double the return. Mom, I said, my voice hardening. I'm not lending Margot money. It's not for Margot, it's for the family. Mom's voice rose. Why are you so selfish? You sit there in your fancy apartment with your high-paying job, and you won't help your sister build a future? Her future is built on a lie, Mom, I said. Does she even have the permits for the renovation? Of course she does. She's handling everything. We signed the papers. You signed power of attorney, I said. Did you read what you signed? We trust her. Mom snapped. Unlike you, she has vision. She's going to make us all rich. And when she does, don't you come looking for a handout. I won't, I said. But Mom, I need you to listen to me. Margot is dangerous. She's lying to you. Stop it. Mom screamed. I don't want to hear your jealousy. If you aren't going to help, then don't call us. You're breaking this family apart, Sloane. The line went dead. I gripped the steering wheel. I was breaking the family apart? I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. They had broken this family years ago when they decided one child was a princess and the other was a servant. But her words stung. They always did. The conditioning ran deep. Then I thought of Kira crying in the bakery. I thought of Otis sweating for free. My resolve hardened. If being the bad daughter meant stopping a criminal, then I'd be the worst daughter they'd ever seen. Thursday night. I was at home, reviewing the plan with Mr. Prentice, my lawyer, over Zoom. The case is solid, Prentice said, adjusting his glasses. We have the deed. We have the contractor's testimony. We have the buyers willing to cooperate. The only wild card is your parents. They'll side with her, I said. They always do. Legally, their power of attorney is void because they didn't own the asset, Prentice explained. However, Margot could argue she believed it was valid. That it was an honest mistake. Not with the gambling records, I said. And not with the texts I'm about to show you. My phone buzzed. A text from Margot. Margot, Mom says you're being AB*H again. Shocking. I didn't reply. Margot, look, I know you're jealous. You always wanted that cabin. But you didn't have the guts to do anything with it. I'm doing Grandpa a favor. I typed, you're destroying it. Margot, I'm improving it. And listen, Sloane. Don't try to sabotage this. I know about your little therapy sessions. I know you tell people we abused you. If you try to mess with my sale, I'll tell everyone about that time you got fired from your first job. I stared at the text. I hadn't been fired. I had been laid off along with half the company. But Margot had spun it into a story about me being incompetent. She was blackmailing me. Or trying to. Margot, stay away from the buyers. Stay away from the site. Or you'll regret it. I took a screenshot. Mr. Prentice, I said, looking at the Zoom camera. She just threatened me. And she admitted she knows I'm watching. Send me the screenshot, Prentice said. That goes to the DA. That proves intent. She knows she's cornered. I sent the image. One more thing, Prentice said. Are you ready for Saturday? It's going to be ugly. Confronting family with police, there's no coming back from that. I looked at the framed photo of Grandpa Silas on my desk. He was holding up a birdhouse we had built together. Creation is hard, Sloane. I know, I said. I'm not trying to come back. I'm trying to move on. Friday was a blur of logistics. I coordinated with Detective Grady from the local precinct. Prentice had already briefed him. Grady was a no-nonsense guy who hated scammers targeting the elderly or young couples. He was eager to make the arrest. I coordinated with Otis. He texted me, she wants the wall down tomorrow at noon. She hired a bulldozer guy from out of town for the garden. Said she wants the apple trees gone to open the view. My heart stopped. The apple trees. Grandpa had planted them 50 years ago. They were his pride and joy. Sloane, stall her. Tell her the bulldozer can't get up the hill until 1 p.m. Otis, I tried. She's manic. She says noon or I'm fired. Sloane, okay. I'll be there at 11:45. I coordinated with Finn and Kira. They were terrified but ready. They were going to arrive at noon with a cashier's check, which was actually a photocopy in an envelope, for the final closing. Everything was set. Friday night, I sat in my apartment. It was silent. I thought about Margot. I remembered when we were kids, before she became this. We used to catch fireflies. We used to share a room. Where did it go wrong? Was it the parents? Was it something broken inside her? It didn't matter anymore. She had made her choice. She chose the gambling. She chose the lies. She chose to tear down the only thing I loved to feed her addiction. I packed my bag. Deed. Lawyer's card. Pepper spray, just in case. I looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't see the shadow anymore. I saw the owner. Game over, Margot, I whispered. I went to sleep. I needed the rest. Tomorrow was demolition day. Saturday broke with a sky so blue it felt mocking. It was a perfect day for a picnic. It was also a perfect day for a demolition. I arrived at the perimeter of the estate at 11:30. I parked my car down the road, hidden behind a thicket of overgrown sumac. I walked the rest of the way up the gravel drive, sticking to the tree line. I could hear them before I saw them. The deep, guttural idle of a diesel engine. The sharp, annoying sound of Margot's voice barking orders. I crept closer until I had a view of the front yard. It was worse than I imagined. A massive orange bulldozer was parked right on the edge of the orchard. Its metal treads had already churned up the lawn that Grandpa used to mow with such precision. Margot was standing near the operator, a guy I didn't recognize, definitely not Otis. She was wearing a hard hat that looked ridiculous on her, paired with designer heels sinking into the mud. "I want them all gone," she was shouting over the engine noise, pointing at the apple trees. "Every single one. I want a clear sight line to the river. We need to pour the concrete for the patio by Monday." The operator shouted something back, gesturing to the slope of the hill. "I don't care about erosion," Margot screamed. "Just push the dirt over the edge. Do it now." My heart hammered against my ribs. Those trees were 70 years old. They were the heart of this property. I checked my watch. 11:45. Otis's truck was parked near the house. He was leaning against the fender, arms crossed, watching the bulldozer with a look of pure disgust. He saw me emerge from the trees. He gave a practically imperceptible nod. It was time. I pulled out my phone. I sent a single text to the group chat I had made with Finn, Kira, and Detective Grady. "Sloan, green light." The bulldozer engine revved. A plume of black smoke shot into the air. The operator lifted the massive front blade and began to pivot the machine toward the first apple tree, the one Grandpa had named the king, the one that produced the sweetest fruit. "Stop." I didn't just shout it. I screamed it with every ounce of lung capacity I had. I sprinted from the tree line, running directly into the path of the bulldozer. The operator slammed on the brakes. The machine lurched to a halt, the blade swinging dangerously close to my head. The treads tore deep gouges into the earth. "Are you crazy, lady?" the operator yelled, leaning out of the cab. "I could have squashed you. Get off my land." I yelled back, standing my ground. Margot spun around. Her face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions: shock, confusion, and finally, pure, unadulterated rage. "Sloan," she shrieked. She stomped over to me, her face twisting. "What the hell are you doing? You almost got killed." "I told you," I said, my voice shaking with adrenaline. "I told you not to touch the trees. This isn't your house." Margot spat. "Get out of here before I call the cops for trespassing. You're ruining everything." "Call them," I challenged. "Go ahead. Call the police, Margot." "I will." She fumbled for her phone. "You're psychopathic. You're jealous because I'm making millions and you're nothing." Just then, a Subaru pulled up the driveway. Finn and Kira stepped out. They looked pale but determined. Kira was clutching a thick envelope. Margot's face instantly transformed. The rage vanished, replaced by a sugary, fake smile that was terrifying to witness. "Kira." "Finn." Margot smoothed her dress, stepping away from me. "You're early." "So sorry about this, my sister is having a bit of a mental health episode. We're just dealing with it." She looked at me, her eyes promising murder. "Sloan, go wait in the car. We'll talk about your medication later." She turned back to the buyers. "Ignore her. Look at this view. Once these ugly trees are gone, it's going to be breathtaking. Did you bring the final payment? Otis is ready to start the luxury framing as soon as we clear funds." Finn stepped forward. He didn't smile. "We brought the check, Margot," Finn said, his voice trembling slightly. $50,000. Cashier's check. Just like you asked." Margot's eyes locked onto the envelope. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Just hand it over, and I'll give you the keys. The new keys. I had the locks changed this morning. She reached out her hand. Greedy. Eager. Finn held the envelope out. Margot's fingers brushed the paper. Police. Drop it. The command cut through the air sharper than the chainsaw. From the back of the barn, where he had been waiting with Otis, Detective Grady stepped out. He was in uniform. His hand was resting on his holster. Two other officers emerged from behind Otis's truck. Margot froze. Her hand hovered in midair. Step away from the couple, ma'am. Grady shouted. What is this? Margot stammered. She looked at Finn, then at me. Is this a prank? Sloane, did you hire strippers? This isn't funny. It's not a prank, Margot, I said, stepping forward. I pulled the deed from my bag. Officer, this woman is attempting to sell a property she does not own. Grady walked over, his boots heavy on the gravel. Margot Vance? Yes, but I have a warrant for your arrest, Grady said calmly. Charges include grand larceny, fraud by deception, forgery of legal documents, and criminal mischief in the first degree. What? Margot laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. That's ridiculous. I'm the executor. My parents gave me power of attorney. Tell him, Otis. Tell him I hired you. Otis spat on the ground near her fancy shoes. You hired me with fake papers, lady. And you never paid me. Finn? Margot turned to the buyers, desperation creeping into her voice. Tell them. We have a deal. I'm doing this for you. We know you gambled our deposit, Margot, Kira said, her voice icy. We saw the blockchain records. You stole our savings. Margot's face went white. I didn't steal it. I invested it. I was going to pay you back double. It was a liquidity bridge. That's a confession, Grady said. Cuff her. One of the officers stepped forward, spinning Margot around. No. No. Don't touch me. Margot screamed, thrashing. My father is going to sue you. I own this place. It's my inheritance. As the handcuffs clicked, a cold, final sound, I walked right up to her. She looked at me, eyes wide with betrayal. You, she hissed. You did this. You set me up. You're my sister. I am, I said softly. And that's the only reason I let you dig this hole so deep. So you could never climb out again. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded document. It was the civil suit Prentice had drafted this morning. What is that? Margot sneered, trying to pull away from the officer. This, I said, sliding it into the back pocket of her dress, is the bill. Bill for what? Restoration, I said. You owe me $212,000. Plus legal fees. Plus the $50,000 you stole from Finn and Kira. Plus the $15,000 you owe Otis. I leaned in close. You wanted the estate, Margot? Congratulations. You just bought the debt. The ride to the station must have been quiet for the officers, but Margot screamed the entire time. I watched from the driveway as the squad car disappeared down the hill. Silence returned to the mountain. The bulldozer operator, looking terrified, had already packed up his machine. I didn't know, lady. I'm leaving. Don't sue me. Just go, I told him. I stood in the driveway with Otis, Finn, and Kira. Is it over? Kira asked, wiping a tear. The criminal part is, I said. Now comes the hard part. Will we get our money back? Finn asked. The police are seizing her accounts, I said. And I'm suing her for everything she has. Her car, her jewelry, her designer bags. It might take time, but I promise you, I will make sure you are made whole before I take a dime for the house. Finn nodded. He looked at the house, the broken windows, the missing siding. It's a beautiful place, Sloane. Even like this. I'm sorry she wrecked it. It can be fixed, Otis grunted. He looked at me. Right, boss? I looked at the cabin. It was battered. It was bruised. It looked like it had been through a war. Just like me. Yeah, I said, feeling the first real smile in weeks spread across my face. It can be fixed. I walked over to the apple tree, the king. The bark was scraped where the bulldozer blade had touched it, oozing sap. But the roots were deep. It was still standing. I rested my hand on the trunk. I got her, Grandpa, I thought. She can't hurt us anymore. But I knew the war wasn't fully over. I still had to face the generals. My phone rang. It was Mom. The confrontation didn't happen at the house. It happened 3 days later, in the hallway of the county courthouse. Margot had been denied bail because she was considered a flight risk. Apparently, the police found searches for countries with no extradition on her phone. I was walking out of the DA's office after giving my formal statement. Mom and Dad were waiting for me. They looked 10 years older. Mom's makeup was smeared. Dad looked deflated, like a balloon that had lost its air. Sloane, Mom gasped, rushing toward me. Thank God. You have to drop the charges. I stopped. I looked at her. Hello to you too, Mom. This is not the time for sarcasm. Dad snapped. Your sister is in a cell. A cage, Sloane. She's terrified. You need to tell the police it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you gave her permission. Tell them it's a civil dispute. I can't do that, I said calmly. Because it wasn't a misunderstanding. And I didn't give her permission. She's your sister. Mom wailed, grabbing my arm. Her nails dug into my skin. Family protects family. How can you be so cruel? Over a house? It's just wood and stone, Sloane. She's flesh and blood. She stole $50,000 from a young couple, I said, pulling my arm away. She stole $15,000 from a working man. She forged your signatures. Did you know she was planning to flee the country and leave you with the debt? That's a lie. Mom screamed. She was investing. She was going to take us to Italy. She was gambling, Mom. I shouted back, my composure finally cracking. Look at the evidence. I sent you the files. She has a gambling addiction. She has lost everything. If I hadn't stopped her, she would have sold the house, taken the cash, and disappeared. And you would have been the ones facing the lawsuits because you signed those power of attorney papers. Dad looked down at his shoes. He knew. Deep down, he knew. We can pay it back, Dad mumbled. We can refinance our house again. We can pay the couple. Just get her out. You're going to bankrupt yourselves for her? I asked, incredulous. Again? She needs us, Mom sobbed. She's fragile. I was fragile too. I said, my voice breaking. When I was 10 and she locked me in the basement? When I was laid off and you told me I wasn't trying hard enough? Where was this loyalty for me? Silence stretched between us. You're strong, Sloane, Mom said weakly. You can handle things. Margot, she's special. That was it. The truth, finally spoken aloud. I was the draft horse. Margot was the show pony. And they would whip the horse to death to buy ribbons for the pony. I'm not dropping the charges, I said. In fact, I'm adding to the civil suit. I'm ensuring she never has access to anyone's finances ever again. If you do this, Mom hissed, her face contorted with hate, you are not our daughter. Don't come home for Christmas. Don't call us. You are dead to us. I looked at them. Really looked at them. I saw the fear, the delusion, the toxicity that had poisoned my entire life. You disowned me the day I was born, I said. I'm just finally accepting it. I turned around and walked away. I heard Mom screaming my name, screaming curses, but I didn't look back. I walked out of the courthouse and into the sunlight. I was an orphan now. And I had never felt lighter. 18 months later. The smell of sawdust and fresh coffee filled the air. A good smell. I stood on the new deck of the cabin. It wasn't exactly like the old one. Grandpa's intricate scrollwork was impossible to replicate perfectly, but it was close. The railing was sturdy cedar. The view of the Hudson River was unobstructed, framed by the surviving apple trees. Coffee's up. I turned. Otis was walking out of the kitchen, holding 2 mugs. He looked healthier, happier. After Margot's assets were liquidated, he had gotten 80 cents on the dollar, but I had paid him the rest out of my own pocket. We had been working on the house together every weekend for a year. Thanks, Otis, I said, taking the mug. Roof looks good, he said, pointing up. Should hold for another 30 years. Let's hope, I smiled. Margot was currently 16 months into a 3-year sentence. She had taken a plea deal. The fraud charges stuck. The golden child was now inmate 7429. Mom and Dad had sold their house. Not to help Margot, the court had blocked them from using funds to aid her defense due to their own involvement in the negligence, but because they were drowning in the debt she had secretly taken out in their names before the arrest. They were living in a small condo in Florida now. I hadn't spoken to them since that day in the hallway. Occasionally, I got a blocked call. I never answered. A car pulled up the driveway. A Subaru. Finn and Kira hopped out. They were smiling. They had recovered their deposit from the seizure of Margot's Range Rover and her hidden crypto wallet, which the forensic accountants had cracked. Hey! Kira waved, holding a basket of muffins. We were in the neighborhood hiking. Thought we'd stop by. Welcome back, I said. They weren't the owners. But they had become friends. Shared trauma bonds people together. We sat on the deck, watching the river flow. The house was quiet. Not the empty, scary quiet of the demolition, but a peaceful, settled quiet. I looked at the scar on the living room floor, a patch of slightly lighter wood where the fireplace stones had damaged the oak. I had decided not to sand it out perfectly. It was a reminder. Margot had tried to burn this place down to warm herself. She had tried to erase history. But the house was still here. I was still here. I spent that evening alone on the porch. The sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in purples and golds. I thought about the bill I had handed Margot. $200,000. She would never pay it. I knew that. She would be in debt for the rest of her life. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the accountability. It was about handing her the physical weight of her actions and saying, "You carry this now. I'm done carrying it for you." I took a sip of my wine. The air smelled of apples and cedar. I preserved my grandfather's legacy and held my sister accountable for her crimes, but my parents say I destroyed the family over just a house. Am I the jerk for handing her that $200,000 bill instead of letting it slide? Thank you so much for listening to this story. It was a long journey, but justice was finally served. If you enjoyed this, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories of karma and revenge. And let me know in the comments, would you have forgiven Margot, or did she get exactly what she deserved? I'll be reading your replies. See you in the next video.